Hello, my name is Ramon Valdez, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to kind of speak around some best practices for instructor support and letting your students know that you are still here and available to them as an instructor. I think one of the things that parents can relate to when having children in the house and having to come up with methods of keeping them engaged or setting some expectations that there is still going to be an education environment. I think a lot of those methods can actually apply to distance learning with adults and high school age students to make sure that we are providing some type of structure. And I really think that's going to be one of the most important things. Make sure that there is some type of expectation that there is going to be a guideline for students meeting at the same time every day, whether it's the class or setting some time aside from your schedule to make sure that you're available to answer any questions. I know for today's distance learning requirements for a lot of educators, solutions like having a Zoom meeting or any other type of web conference education is absolutely useful. It's invaluable to have that type of option available. The reality is that you may not have an environment that is the most conducive to web conferencing, or you may not have the bandwidth to support hours and hours of video conferencing. We have educators using the chat functionality, for example, to open up at a certain time every single day that they would normally have met in person or met in the classroom. And there's a description on that chat along the lines of, please make sure to show up and log in on time and ready to learn. Try to minimize distractions. The reality is that you're not going to be able to get rid of all of the distractions that are available, but if that student is taking time to set aside some kind of personal education space as much as possible, they can tie that with the expectation that at 8 a.m. every day, I'm logging into this chat session. And it very much is a low-tech way of keeping in touch with your students. That educator can also send private messages to the students through the live chat. And I do think that's a very low-tech, easy way to have that live communication. You can have it shut down at the same time every day. You can use it to track attendance for your students without having to meet them in person. You still know that they're at least in front of their computer in some capacity working on their assignments or working on their assessments. Another method of meeting the students halfway and presenting to them the understanding that you are still available to them is setting the expectation and sending out the knowledge that you are available during certain hours of the day to be contacted. And again, everyone has their personal life. Everyone has a second life aside from being an educator or from being a student. And again, you're going to have distractions, but if you're setting some time aside and if you're setting 2 hours throughout the day where you can take phone calls from the students or you can do a web conference with the students, that's going to be an invaluable tool to let the student know that you are still here, that they still have support throughout their education. It is very much a different situation for everyone involved as far as the distance learning requirements that we have nowadays. And this is another way that you can just help ease the students' peace of mind. Let them know that they have a question. If they aren't comfortable answering a question in the chat tool, or if you set up a discussion forum inside the classroom, that might be something that they don't necessarily want to have all eyes on their question or all eyes on their response. So having that personal, as it were, digital interaction with the student of having a video conference, having some time set aside, even if you have to put people in line, as it were, and say, all right, at this time I'm speaking to another student, but I can speak to you directly after that. You're setting that rapport and you're keeping that line of communication open with them. In light of everything that everyone is dealing, this can be a very mentally stressful time period for students and for educators. It's also important to introduce some personality into your course, and I do suggest that if you're using any personalized materials that you have to give out to the students, don't lose sense of your personality. Make sure that you're injecting maybe some of that with humor or things that might be happening in the community around them or around yourself that they can engage with. It's not just the cold, hard book that they have to stare at. It's not just the cold resources that they have to stare at online. They're still hearing your voice, whether it's written down in an email or whether it's a snippet that you record yourself in a video conference and send that out to the students as kind of a weekly touch base or a daily touch base. I do think that can be another tool that can be useful in just keeping communication and comfort with your students, especially when it comes to how do I make sure that they know I'm still here for them, that I'm still a person on the other end of this camera or screen that is available to answer questions for them, and that they can still have interaction with me. Thank you very much. Have a great day and stay safe.